Let's go. Teach Vlad some more stuff as usual.
Nah, you were going to be the one who learned.
Oh, wow. All right. We'll see. We haven't even started yet.
Especially about the third and fourth topic.
All right. I'm ready for it. Let's see.
I don't know what to say about shrimps, though.
Luckily, the only time I'm going to mention shrimp is just in the title, and then I have nothing else to say.
Right.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Culture Clash podcast, where Russian and American consultants discuss and debate some of the hot news topics of the week. With that, I'm Michael.
I'm Vlad. Hi, everyone.
And this week we'll be discussing 4 topics as usual: genetically modified shrimp, the state of the U.S. political race with 3 weeks to go before the election, Elon Musk wanting to put robots in our houses, and is LinkedIn still useful? So with that, I'll ask you, Vlad, question number 1.
Go ahead.
Are you ready for question 1?
Go ahead.
You more prepared this week than last week?
Oh, my God.
We'll see.
You will be the one who is learning.
Is that right?
Absolutely.
All right. I'm looking forward to the lesson.
Absolutely.
Excellent. So question 1, Vlad. Researchers have made a breakthrough this week in genetically editing shrimp, breeding them for improved disease resistance, growth rates, and environmental adaptations. Should we embrace genetically editing humans?
Okay. While I was thinking about this topic and while I was considering this news, I actually found out that I'm more of a, how you call them, like a technological optimist, something like that. So basically, I believe that new development, new technologies, new breakthroughs in science, they usually bring more positive things in our lives. So with that, I would say that we can get a lot of good benefits out of this breakthrough. And I also checked that we kind of had already got a lot of benefits from this genes modification. So for example, in 2020, we got a first successful genetically modified heart transplant from the pig to a person. Then in 2023, they repeated the success, and it was better because in 2020, the patient lived just a couple of months, and in 2023, it was much better. Then in 2021, yes, there was, in 2020 also, there was a patient with sickle cell disease and, how you call it, CRISPR-based therapy. And again, it was the breakthrough. So I think with that, we can be quite hopeful that we will be able to basically cure some genetic diseases. And I think we should do it. I think we should do it.
Yeah, I totally agree. Wow. On this one, we actually agree 100%. Bit surprising. I totally agree. I think for a few reasons, and I want to take it in a slightly different direction, I think, to even what you had mentioned. Again, in general, this CRISPR technology has been around for a couple of years. And what's so phenomenal about it is that, again, when it was discovered, it's called the CRISPR-Cas9 technology, right? Yeah. So they take this CRISPR, which literally stands for clustered, regularly interspaced, short, palindromic repeats. Don't think you know what that means. I have no idea what that means. But it has something to do with DNA, right? Cas9 is an enzyme that recognizes and opens certain strands of DNA. So they take this technology, and it's essentially genetic scissors, as it's described by the founders and a lot of people who obviously know about this stuff. So with that, you're able to go in and physically individual strands of DNA, modify it, change it, which is obviously very precise and has potential for tremendous benefits. And again, I think you mentioned, for example, sickle cell disease being sort of an easy one that you could target and try to alleviate. Another one that comes to mind for me is hemophilia. For example, I don't know if you're familiar with that, but that's the disease where your blood has trouble clotting. So that was a sort of famous illness that was actually made famous by
Russian
Tsar Nicholas. Yeah, exactly. His son actually had a huge impact on the Russian Revolution, the Russian Empire, a whole different topic. But
good point.
That was was sort of very impactful case of hemophilia. But again, these type of diseases have small, I think, single gene issues. So there's single gene problems that this CRISPR-Cas9 technology can go in and fix. So, from my perspective, 100% we should be embracing this technology. Now, that being said, it goes even deeper, because then where do you draw the line? How do you take it forward from there? So I read a study from Pew Research back in 2022 that said 48% of American adults would genetically edit their children to reduce the risk of disease. Only 48%. Now, 73%, however, said that they would feel pressure to do so if other people were doing it. So that raises sort of the question as to where do you draw the line? To what extent should you go into genetic alterations? But then, even more interestingly, is that 83% of Americans polled said they would So 83% of Americans polled said that gene editing to improve IQ was a step too far, and they wouldn't do that. So as it stands now, you've got about half of the population in the U.S. who would sort of use this technology to improve any issues around disease and all of that, but not yet to genetically edit their children or anything like that. So I guess my next question to you is, should we be looking at not only just preventing disease, should we actually be looking into positively genetically editing our children, the human race? What's your take on that?
Great question and great point, because when I was thinking about this as well, that was my main concern. Even though I'm fully support using the gene modifications in order to cure diseases, in order to help people, especially when it comes to, again, gene diseases like Alzheimer's and all of this. Nobody has learned how to do this. However, I'm very, very concerned that this technology can be used for, not for good, can be used for even like for military purposes. Look at the Captain America. I don't want to have Hulks and Captain Americas of this world. Really.
Would you prefer Captain Russia, or is it just you don't want Captain America across the board?
No, it's not about America. It's not about America, man. I wouldn't prefer Captain.
Just Captain in general.
Yes. Fair enough. I don't want to have a super soldiers or something like that, because basically then you create additional, imbalance between people. And someone who can afford these technologies, they will be genetically modified to be better, stronger, smarter, and so on, faster, you name it. So, my take on this is we should clearly draw the line over here. It can be used for cure, but I'm not sure. Actually, I'm sure that it should not be used for alterations and for like modifications to to create superhumans, super people.
So you would not use it to boost anything, whether it's IQ, whether it's this, whether it's that. You wouldn't do that.
I would love to have personally something like to try, but if I think of the larger scale, I don't think that it should be available to like some people. I don't think.
So now we totally disagree.
Okay.
I completely disagree. I think absolutely we should be pursuing technology like that. So for example, this is something that
I haven't said we should not pursue the technology like that.
Okay, I'm saying we should be pursuing it, even the alterations you're talking about. I think we should be editing our DNA if we can to improve intelligence, to improve this, to become bigger, stronger, faster. I don't see a problem with that. I don't see any issue with that. You're saying you're against that completely.
Yeah. So if imagine this technology, most likely it will be super expensive, right? So basically then we are going to the movie called Time, where those who are the richest people, they are also the strongest, the smartest, they dominate everything, and others, they have no opportunities to somehow improve it. And we never know about the consequences. Again, I think there are lots of movies. I'm in the kind of pop culture mode today. There are a lot of movies where you can find whenever people start playing with genes for like to making something better, and they do it to the large scale, to super large scale, they are careless about this. I think it goes to catastrophic consequences.
I mean,
have you seen Planet of the Apes?
I have seen Planet of the Apes. Great movie. I've seen every single one. Yeah.
Exactly. Have you seen what happened?
Yeah, I saw what happened. Fine. It's a movie. It's Hollywood. I mean, fine. Okay. But no, I think it's something that's actually important to do, and there's a couple of reasons for that. So, for example, you as a parent. So I know you're not a parent now. I'm not a parent now, but conceptually, some research that I did also. So there's a professor named Professor Antonakis of organizational behavior at Switzerland's University in Lausanne, who says that IQ is the single most important predictor of work success.
Okay.
So IQ has a very direct correlation to success at work, incomes, wealth, things like that. In 2012, Vanderbilt University also said, so this is in the US, that those with high IQs earn higher incomes on average than those with lower IQs. So the point is, if the technology is available and I can improve the IQ of my child with gene editing, Why wouldn't I do it?
Why you should do it with gene editing?
Because it's possible. So why wouldn't I do it? What's the alternative? Why not?
There are many ways to increase your IQs.
And they're already being done, which is the point. So this is the argument I'm making. So this is coming, in my view, whether we like it or not. So again, if I have children, I'm going to do everything I can as a parent to make them more intelligent, successful, and all those things, right? That would be something we would all do. I assume you would do the same, right? I would hope so. I mean, so...
Not ready to talk about kids. I don't know.
Okay, so I have
nothing.
Kids
I
at
have
all.
I have nothing to say about this.
Okay, if you had kids.
Yeah,
I
of
think
course.
anybody,
I would
any
like to
parent.
have the best for them.
Of course, that's the point. As a parent, you want the best for your
Of
kids.
course.
So if that means, like when I was growing up, for example, going to summer classes, getting tutors, getting all the additional support that you might need, we would invest in that for our children, is the point. So my only argument is, once the technology is there and once it's clear that we can do these things, that we can edit DNA for IQ, that we can do it maybe for eye color, for hair color, for height, I think, of course, it's inevitable, and we're going to do it, and I actually think we should do it. Because, again, we're already doing it unofficially. So, again, whether that means tutoring, whether that means private school, we're already committing additional resources to try to improve ourselves. So why not just do it at the genetic level? What's the philosophical difference?
So you are comparing education with gene modification, and,
Sure.
and you are putting them on the same level.
I am. Because at the end of the day, all you're doing is seeking the same outcome, which is improving intelligence, improving opportunities later in life, improving any of that. So again, there's already a wealth gap, right? Where wealthier people are able to send their kids to private schools, able to send their kids to summer school, get tutors, all of these things. So there's already this gap that exists where, again, people without those means aren't able to do that. So you already have this built-in sort of gap, whether it comes to IQ, whether it comes to opportunities and all of that. So all I'm saying here is that we already have that motivation in society. We already, as human beings, want to, again, have the best for our children, for our friends, for our family. So why not just go for that even at the genetic level? What is the fundamental difference? And I think eventually this is going to happen whether we like it or not. So better to just embrace it, get on board, and support it.
I would prefer to see it in alterations in something else rather than people, rather than human beings. So I like when, for example, they use the same technology to improve the rice. That's what I like. Like when you improve the products, and when you improve the different like consumables that we use. This is good. Like I don't mind that. Like they modified the rice in 2023, and I think it was approved in Philippines actually for a wider use. And now this rice can help people produce more vitamin A, which is great because people have a deficit of vitamin A. Perfect.
Sure.
However, like again, this is you apply for something that is accessible to a lot of people. And even though I don't believe that everything should be available to everyone, I am very concerned that if you apply these gene modifications, this technology, this research to a very limited group of people can afford it, first, and second, I think when you start modifying something, like let's take the plastic surgery. There are a lot of cases where someone starts modifying something, starting to change something, they never stop. So whenever the people start working with genes and they will like try to improve IQ, then we'll try to improve something else. And again, I'm afraid that the consequences are not yet calculated.
Fine, but aren't we as humans naturally going to do that anyway? So that's my entire point, that we're always going to strive to improve our IQs, improve our physical capacity, improve anything about ourselves.
That's a good point.
So even take your example about the genetically altered rice. Okay, so that's one step, which is we modified the plant, fixed the rice. Now we're giving rice to people so they don't have a vitamin A deficiency. What if we just went into their genes and built in some kind of vitamin A, improved production of vitamin A, for example? What's the fundamental difference? Why don't we start doing that? And at some point, if you keep going down this road, we're going to continue to open up these doors. And my only point is, why don't we just embrace it? Because that's how we are as people anyway. This is what we do, sort of as human beings. So what's the fundamental issue? Is my only question about that.
What's the fundamental issue with improving ourselves?
No, I'm saying with genetically altering ourselves to make these improvements.
So again, I will repeat what I just said. I think I can see the two main issues. The first one is it increases the, how do you call it, the disadvantages, right? It increases it increases the unfair advantage of someone, which might create additional tense in the society, in the world. And the second, what I wanted to say is we don't know about the risks, and it might lead us to consequences that we don't want. Because whenever I assume that currently you cannot modify something just to increase the vitamin A in our genes.
Right now.
Yeah, right now. But I don't want, to see the scenario when they want to modify something, when they want to increase the vitamin A, and suddenly this person gets, I don't know, ultra speed or something like that.
So that sounds like a benefit, actually, not really a cost. But my point is, this is all embedded already. So even take GMOs, right? So we're using this technology for genetically modified organisms to make food, again, easier to grow, more plentiful, all these other things. We don't know if that's actually going to have some sort of negative impact either, but we're doing it anyway. Why? Because there's a clear benefit, which is you feed more people, you get people, again, with higher vitamin A levels, you solve some of these health issues. So all I'm saying is, why not just go all the way? Which is to say, you want to be smarter, rather than spending all this money on private school, this, that, and the other thing. Let's change your genes. Let's make you smarter if you want to be smarter. I don't see what the philosophical issue is. And my only reason for asking the question is this is going to become an issue. This is going to be something as technology develops. And as we're seeing these huge breakthroughs happening pretty frequently, we're going to need to ask ourselves these questions.
I'm not saying that we're not going there. I think you're right in this case that we eventually go there into the direction where we want to improve ourselves one way or another, and one way or another. It will be either genetic modification, or we will end up with, I don't know, bionic arms and so on. But I'm not sure. Again, I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. I'm not saying it's an ultimately bad thing. As I said, I'm a kind of technical optimist. But in a way, I have quite strong concerns to how widespread it should be.
Fair enough. I was going to say I don't share those concerns. I think, again, there's a risk, obviously. There's risk to any of these things. But I think in principle, I think the mindset for society, particularly on these things, should be forward-looking. And again, to the technical optimistic point, which is embrace it. So sort of shoot first, ask questions later. Let's allow the technology, and then we deal with the ramifications. Because why would we slow these things down? Why would we fight these things when we know at the end of the day it's going to end up at the same point anyway? That's my sort of argument. And even to start to wrap up the topic, but I don't know if you know Yuval Noah Harari. You've heard of this guy? Yeah, of course. Homo sapiens, and famous author, famous thinker, brilliant guy. Great thinker. And he wrote that humankind is, to your point, facing a potential split into a class of superhumans and a class of what he called useless people because of things like, again, AI, but particularly biotech. So the only point I'm making is this biotech is coming anyway. So better to sort of be prepared as society and embrace it, acknowledge that this is what's going to happen, and try to plan for that, versus trying to ban it or trying to stop it, because at the end of the day, if the technology's there, I think we're just going to use it.
That is hard to disagree with. I don't think we should ban it in any way. And whenever it comes to any new technology, I don't think that the first reaction should be ban it, slow it down, and everything. No, the only point I would like to add to this is, yes, but just we need to keep about the consequences and calculate the risks. That's the only thing I wanted to add.
On that, I actually agree with you. So I think we're actually aligned on that point. Yeah. The only, again, key difference is if and when we both have kids, my kids are going to get higher IQs because I'm going to genetically alter them, and yours, if you want to wait, that's up to you. But then we'll see how our kids are doing in school, and we can assess it there.
You couldn't resist all this comment, right?
I couldn't. I had to. I had to go there. So, Vlad, polls show that Kamala Harris has a slight lead in national polls, but Trump is also gaining in those same polls, as well as in a lot of the state polls. Who should be considered the favorite in the U.S. presidential race with 3 weeks left to go?
Okay, that's a great question. And what I'm going to do is I want to play the Uno card, and I will reverse it to you.
The Uno, okay.
Uno card,
okay.
Yes.
So you just played the reverse card to get me to answer the question I just asked you.
Exactly, but... Okay. I would like to add a couple of things over here. So the first one, being from the country where elections are more or less predictable.
Okay. Probably safe to
I
say.
I don't understand how the things can change within 1 week, or like how can they change every week with all these like minor things that happens in the U.S. election race. I don't understand how the minor things can actually influence people mind and people opinion about their candidates. And another point is I actually don't believe in all these polls, because the way I understand they're done, like they ask the population of people, they sample, and then they extrapolate this. So I don't know if it's actually like worth it, and like they ask random people about this, and I don't know if these polls showing like the people's, I don't know, the people attitude to their candidates. I don't actually think it's worth how you say, it's worth paying very much attention to. However, I would like to know where I'm wrong.
Where are you wrong? Well, in a number of places. But I can walk you through exactly where you're wrong. One thing you did say that I do agree with: the polls are not to be taken sort of as as gospel, so to speak, or as sort of the law or anything like that. They're, again, sometimes very inaccurate, and I'll walk you through some of the recent examples. They can't always be relied on, so there's a lot of issues with the polls. But there's a number of areas where you're just you're wrong in terms of some of the analysis. But to answer that question, since you put it back to me, is who should be considered the favorite in the presidential election? And it's interesting because a number of folks are sort of coming out on all sides of that question. So, for example, I'm going to read some of the folks who are saying Harris is likely to win. There's a famous historian in the U.S. His name is Alan Lichtman, who's correctly predicted 9 out of the last 10 elections. So he's got his own methodology, not relying on the polls, to your point.
Okay.
And he's been accurate 9 of the last 10 times, including Trump in 2016, when really nobody thought he was going to win. So he's suggesting that Kamala Harris is the clear favorite, using his 13 keys. He's got keys to the election that have nothing to do with the polls, things like foreign policy, the economy, sort of macro questions or macro factors, exactly.
Okay.
So that's sort of one famous example. Nate Silver, who's widely considered to be one of the best poll analysts in the U.S., also has Harris as a slight favorite with a 52% chance of winning. But then you've got other metrics. Betting odds right now have Trump at 54%. And then it's going to be, for whatever it's worth, my analysis as to sort of how I'm seeing the race. And again, I sort of mentioned it last week. I've been following U.S. politics really since I was a kid. So some people like to watch Nickelodeon. I like to watch CNN and follow the polls as much as I could. So I think Trump is the favorite. If you look at the polls, I actually do believe in the polls. I think they serve some level of value. There's a huge change in the polls in this 2024 election versus the previous 2 Trump elections in 2020 and 2016. So just take you high level. Harris right now is sitting in the lead nationally at 1.7% above Trump, national polls. So if we compare that to the 2020 election, Biden on the eve of the election was at a 7-point lead in the polls nationally. Hillary was at a 3.3% lead. So Trump is clearly more competitive versus those last 2 elections. He won one of them, he lost one of them. But again, national polls actually don't mean nothing. The national election doesn't actually mean anything. So I don't know if you're familiar with this, but U.S. elections aren't decided by a national vote.
Yeah.
It's state-by-state votes.
Yeah.
So the way to think of U.S. elections is not one national election, but 50 individual state elections.
Yeah.
So when you win not even the majority, when you win the most votes in a state, you get all the votes, the points, so to speak, from that state. So each state has a number of votes or points, however you want to sort of think about it,
Yeah.
based on population factors and other things like that. So really what we need to be looking at is the state polls. So there's 6 critical swing states right now in the U.S., and the person who wins the majority of those swing states will win the election.
Okay.
And that's pretty much all the election boils down to. 6 individual states, and that's it. So all the 300 and however many million people we have now, 340, 350 million, it all comes down to really these just 6 states. So with that being said, if you look at the polls, Trump is now in the lead, according to the average in the polls, in 5 of those 6 states. That's noteworthy because on average, he's outperformed the polls in each of the last 2 elections. So for example, when he ran against Hillary Clinton, the polls in those individual states suggested one thing on the eve of the election. So you had polls, for example, that had Hillary Clinton leading by 6.5 points in Wisconsin, and Trump ended up winning the state. You had polls, for example, that had Hillary Clinton in the lead in Michigan by 3.6 points. Trump won Michigan as well. So you've had these huge shifts in Trump's favor in the polls in these individual states. And now, with that being said, Trump is already leading in 5 of these 6 swing states. So if you ask me, having looked at the polls and looked at what's happened for the past couple of elections, I don't see how Trump leading in 5 of these 6 states, and he only has to win 4 of them to be the president, and seeing that in the past 2 national elections, the polls have undersampled Trump's support. So for me, if I'm looking at this, I think, okay, I think actually Trump is in the lead. I think he's got the likeliest chance to win. And on top of that, a few other points. The top 2 issues right now for independent voters in America are the economy and immigration, in that order. Trump is leading on both of those issues. A couple other points. African American support in the U.S. for Donald Trump is at 15 percentage points. That doesn't sound high, but it was 7 in 2016. It was 9 in 2020. He's growing his support massively with minority groups, the traditional supporters of the Democratic Party. The Latino vote, the Hispanic vote in the U.S. In 2016, Trump won 28%. He won 36% in 2020. He's now polling at 37%. So he's growing his support with minority groups, again, traditional Democratic voters.
That is surprising.
And most people wouldn't think that. Most people are shocked when they would see, and interestingly, in 2020, so Trump lost that election, he got more support with every ethnic group in the country except white people. So he gained support. Again, people call him racist, people say this, people say that. He's not considered to be necessarily on the surface a candidate of minorities, right?
He's against immigration, right? Like he wants to restrict it, and still he's supported by the major immigrant group.
Well, but at least increasingly so. So again, the Democrats still have a majority of that group, but increasingly, right? So when I'm looking at all of this in totality, a huge growth in support with the African American community, with the Latino community, out polling himself in the last 2 elections, including one that he won, which was in 2016. I think Trump's the favorite. I think again, unless we get that October surprise we talked about last week,
right?
I think things look pretty good for Trump.
Interesting. However, I think you said, correct me if I heard it wrong, but I think you said he was leading in the polls in all the previous elections, and still he won one and he lost one.
No, he was behind in all the polls.
So he was behind.
So again, for example, let's take Biden. So Wisconsin, again, not that important. It's one of these 6 swing states. The polls had him down on the eve of the election by 6.7 points against Biden. He only lost by 0.7. Hillary was leading by 6.5%. He won that. So the polls were so far off in favor of the Democrats.
That's my point.
What is
polls are so off.
Yeah,
it's very hard to pay attention to them, because this is the only numeric value that we can look at. That's why I think we stick to this. But unfortunately or fortunately, they are not that predictive.
They're not great indicators. True, and I agree with that. So I'm not trying to look at the polls necessarily.
Okay.
Where they stand. So again, Trump is up 0.1 in Pennsylvania, 0.9 in Michigan. I actually don't care about that. That's all within the margin of error, right? Polls are building in that they could be wrong by 3 or 4 points. What matters to me is that the change. So the change from 2016 to 2020 to 2024, all of it is more in Trump's direction now. So I think that's noteworthy because he won one of those elections and lost one, but he's doing better in the same polls than he did in both of those elections. That's my only point. And that's why, and again, even the polls need to be taken with a grain of salt, as you said. You're saying they're useless. I'm saying they have some use, but...
Yeah, it's better. Okay, some use.
Some use, that's all. Some people think there's no use, right? I mean, I told you the professor, the historian, says completely useless. I think there is some value, but if you take that with the 2 most important issues for independent voters, the economy and immigration, which Trump both leads on, and the big support he's getting, or at least expanded support with a lot of minority groups, if you were to ask me, which you did, who's the favorite, for me, Trump is the favorite.
Okay, so your point is, on the surface, Kamala is winning so far, but Trump is kind of considered to be the favorite.
What I'm saying is I think Harris looks stronger on paper than she really is my point.
Okay.
And I think there could be a surprise. In my opinion, the bigger surprise would be or the more likely surprise would be Trump wins all of those swing states. And to me, I think there's a greater chance he wins big than Kamala wins big. I think everything is skewed more towards Trump, if that makes sense.
Okay, let's
Again,
see.
based on the polls being wrong the past 2 years, not in favor of Trump, but in favor of the other direction, and all these other reasons, I think Trump is the favorite.
Okay, let's see.
You don't have a strong view on that, yeah?
I don't have a strong view on that. Like for me, it's just like watching a show.
Okay.
Even though I understand like there can be many potential consequences of as the outcome of these elections, but to me, it's like watching a TV show. And actually, like I noticed that for many also Russian audience, they like to watch the American elections, but again, they watch it as a show.
Yeah.
So for us, it's just to let's observe, let's see who wins. And my also personal opinion is, even though the consequences considered to be like massive, I don't think there will be any massive shift in American politics, like irrespective of who out of these candidates win.
It's funny as well. I mean, the 2 points you
Probably
made.
it's another topic.
I was going to say, I think those are actually 2 really good points because, for one, I think a lot of Americans view it as a show also. For me, it's also a show, even though I do have a stake in the race. I am American. But it is a show. I mean, they make the political cycle, 18 months long. It's, it's theater to some extent,
Exactly.
right? So I totally get that. And then that's a whole nother topic, which we should do a separate piece on. Does it actually matter who wins? I think it matters in the domestic political I think it matters for domestic politics. I think things do change inside the country, but us living outside the country, and I can say, even as an American expat, do things really change all that much? There's a lot that doesn't change. So that's a whole nother topic, which we should get into.
Agree. So last week, Elon Musk made a massive presentation called We Robot, where he introduced Tesla's recent prototypes of self-driving cars, self-driving taxis, self-driving train, and most importantly, androids. Androids. Tesla bots named Optimus. I think we should have Optimus Prime picture over here. I'm really in a pop culture mood today. Named Optimus, who can deal with our daily chores, which is great. So, my question to you, Michael, is should we start saving our money to get androids to our house, or is it just a marketing move from Musk?
Save up your money, absolutely. Save as much as you can, because I think Elon's got some great ideas here, and I think these are really game-changing technologies. Originally, I wasn't sure I was going to say that. I did some research, and I'm not a tech pessimist, but I think a lot of these things do get overhyped. A lot of it's marketing. Apple's car, this, that, and the other thing. You don't really know what technology is going to take off. But doing a deeper dive, I think these technologies are really phenomenal and solve a lot of key problems that society is facing today. So I'll break it down by sort of two of those technologies. So one is the autonomous robocar, or robotaxi as he calls it. A couple data points that I think highlight how important that technology will be. So in the US, for example, you have 42,000 traffic fatalities every year, which cost the country $340 billion in terms of an economic hit. 1.2 million people globally are killed in traffic incidents as well. It's a huge number of people. And the average country faces a 3 to 5% GDP cost just to deal with traffic accidents and all of the associated problems. I think that's huge. Musk is saying, again, he has a penchant to sometimes exaggerate, but he predicted that his autonomous vehicles and autonomous vehicles in general could be 10 to 30 times safer. So think about all the lives that would save. Think about all the cost savings that would be associated with that in the society. I think that's phenomenal. I think that's that's coming as well, and we need to embrace that. People are concerned about, what if my car suddenly goes rogue, or this, that, and the other thing. It's much more dangerous for people just to drive, whether you're a bit tired, whether you're a bit distracted. I trust the technology actually much more than I trust the individual driver. That's me personally, and I think the data will bear that out. On top of that, what's so interesting about his concept is not just that you're buying an autonomous car, but his concept of turning the car not from a depreciating asset, but an appreciating asset. What a fascinating concept. So he's saying when you buy a car, you're actually buying an investment. You're not buying a piece of junk that's going to be useless in 5 years. He's saying when you're not using the car, we will allow the autonomous self-driving car to go pick up other people. So now you can almost have an Uber type of model or a Lyft type of model from your car. So instead of losing money paying every single year on, whatever it is, the interest payments or this, that, the car is less valuable once you drive it off the lot, right? Instead, your car actually retains its value. And if anything, can provide you another income stream. That's great. I mean, what's there not to like about that? I also read here, so I think what's the car going to go for? About $30,000? Is that the
$30K? Yeah.
$30,000. The average American, when they buy a new car in the U.S., do you know how much money they spend on a new car?
50,000.
47,000. Good guess. $47,338. So now you're saying Elon Musk comes along and says, "I'll sell you this car for what? 40% cheaper. Plus, you're able to make a little bit of money on it by having that car be part of this Uber type of model." It's great. There's nothing not to like about it. Now, the only drawback is you're going to need to create the infrastructure around that. The technology probably isn't here just yet, but that's an amazing concept. And I don't think that's marketing. I think, again, we're talking about the guy who built SpaceX. We're talking about the guy who, again, is leading Tesla. I mean, the dude is capable of, pretty incredible things. So I think it's a great concept. I think it's transformative. And I think you should be saving up your money for that. On the Optimus point, again, phenomenal technology, phenomenal concept. So now that one, initially I was more skeptical of. I was thinking, okay, who wants to spend $20,000 to $30,000 on some iRobot from the movie who's just going to sit there, do your chores and all that? It's pretty expensive, whatever you want to call it, purchase, just to have this thing cook you food, do your dishes, clean your house. But then the more that I looked into it, check out this data point. In the U.S., do you know how much time people spend on chores, on just doing stuff around the house and all of that stuff?
I would assume somewhere around 15 hours a week.
So I don't know about per week, but I know per year it's about 200 hours a year, 208 hours a year, which equates to almost 9 full days, which means every day for a little bit less than an hour, you're doing chores around the house. If you were to extrapolate that into the time for your labor, right, the unpaid value of all that time, for the average U.S. adult, it's $7,200 a year of time you spend on chores. It's actually a pretty good chunk of money. So if you're a family where you've got, a spouse at home, the two of you are going to spend the equivalent of $14,000 a year on all these chores, cleaning up, mowing the lawn, doing this, doing that. So Elon Musk comes along and he's saying for $20,000 to $30,000, you can buy a robot, some Optimus, whatever he calls it, and this thing will do all of that for you. It's Optimus. Okay.
Optimus.
Yeah, fine. That's great. Again, that's an economic benefit. Now, what does that let you do? That lets you not just take away all of that, clutter in your life, all of these chores that you need to do. You can now be more productive at work. Maybe you work a little bit longer hours. Maybe you have more leisure time. Maybe you could take care of your health a little bit better, go to the gym, spend time with your kids, de-stress, pursue a second hobby, pursue a side job, for example. It's a net benefit no matter how you look at it. So for me, if you ask me, which you did, the question of would I be saving up money for Optimus? Yes, 100%. Save up money for Optimus, save up money for Robotaxi. This is some incredible stuff. What's your take on it?
Okay, I agree with you, but for all the different arguments.
Uh-oh. Okay.
So I agree with you in principle, but I consider completely different points. And I agree with you also on the point where there are some concerns and there are some risk of this being more of a marketing move or a little bit exaggerating or whatever, as you said.
Oh, I don't think there's any marketing. I think it's genuinely a great actual product.
You said there might be some exaggerating where I agree. Okay. I don't think it's purely marketing. I said it's a huge technological advancement, and I agree we should save money for this, and I'm sure I will be. Mm-hmm. Okay, so for the cars, that's fine. I think it's already there. Like a lot of the technology, technological things he mentioned, they're already there. You have already self-driving taxis. There is what's company called Waymo, right? In San Francisco, I guess, where they actually really competing with Uber, and the cost per ride is pretty much the same. So people, like a lot of people, they prefer to use this Waymo because like it's a like you get the Jaguar car that drives safely and so on. I think we will see about the incidents, but again, I agree with all these numbers, and I have the same point. I think the risk of human error is way more frequent compared to technological error. So I would also say that I would rather trust my life when I'm in the taxi. I would rather trust my life to the autonomous taxi rather than to a tired driver who's been driving 20 hours this day already. Then when it comes to the Androids, the Optimus, I was mostly surprised by this because when I saw the presentation where I saw the Optimus bartender, that was pretty cool. Have you seen it? Mm-hmm. Yeah, this was pretty cool. But again, like a lot of this technology is already there. Boston Dynamics have their dog, which is like also pretty cool and like can do pretty nice tricks and all of this. It's also like pretty much there, and I think yes, we can use our we can trust a lot of things that we do daily to these robots. However, again, even though I'm a technical optimist, I can see quite some concerns over here. So you basically let this robot in your daily life. They pretty much live with you, and I think again, I would feel safer to have robots doing housekeeping instead of inviting housekeeper from the outside. I would feel safer. I would be more convinced that the robot will not steal from me or something like that. However, when you enter the piece of technology in your let piece of technology in your life, I think there is a risk that it can be hacked, it can be controlled by someone, and all these conspiracy things. However, they're happening. Just today, I saw the news where the group of hackers in America, they hacked the robo vacuum cleaners. They hacked them, and they got the access to their camera, to their house map, and to their speakers. So what they started to do, they started hunting the pets. So can you imagine, like the army of robot vacuum cleaners hunting the pets in their houses? I know it sounds funny, but there is a risk of that, and I would love to be sure that when we let the robots in our lives, like we are kind of protected from this risk. So again, knowing how Musk and Tesla can exaggerate the things, I think there are a couple of things they announced. We are still waiting for them, and I think they announced that Tesla will cost like $20,000. I don't see Tesla cost $20,000. I mean Tesla cars, regular cars, and a lot of technology is already there. And again, I agree that we should save money, but okay, keep in mind that we should be cautious about this, and keep in mind that Tesla can exaggerate some of the things, so it probably will come later than we might expect.
Yeah, so I agree with the timeline because I think Musk himself said it in, I think it was either right after or during the actual forum or session, however you want to call it, that he tends to exaggerate timelines. But to your point...
he said that?
Yeah, he said. He was like, yeah, I tend to be a bit overly optimistic about timelines, so I'm saying late 2025 for optimists. Maybe it's a little bit later, so I think people are sort of building in that, yeah, Musk tends to do a bit of that. So that's where the marketing to me comes in.
Okay.
But not the concept. I think the concept is again, phenomenal and serves a clear economic need, and I think it's something that really would benefit just society at large. Now, to your point, though, about your concern, fine, I agree with you, but that's a concern you have with all technology. So,
true.
Okay, so you're not necessarily having concern that the technology is somehow a degree of change in terms of the risk, right? I mean, you're just saying that, like any other technology, you need to be careful around security and all of that, because a phone could be hacked. I mean, as you said, the vacuum cleaner could be hacked. So what's unique about the risk then with the robot?
The risk with the robot, with the Optimus, the risk is that this is actually like human-size piece of tech in your house that have access to your knives, to your kitchen, to your clothes, to to your neck when you're sleeping.
Okay.
That's the concern.
Okay, I got it. So you've seen iRobot, obviously.
Of course.
Okay, so I think that's maybe what you're... And by the way, fair. I mean, it is a legitimate risk if you could hack the robot itself. That's a much bigger concern. Fine, I understand that, and I agree with that. But again, I think it's like anything else. We've already accepted so much,
Agreed.
So much technological vulnerability into our lives. I mean, think about online banking. We do everything from our phone. All you got to do is hack into the phone. You got access to everything. So would I be concerned about my, iRobot or Optimus, strangling me in the middle of the night? No, but it's a fair concern to have, and that's where the cybersecurity comes in and all that. But yeah, I think it's a great technology, a great concept, and I think we agree on that.
FTX executive. FTX is the loud company that was
the crypto exchange.
Crypto exchange that turned out to be the fraud one. I think last year it was.
I think so.
FTX former executive. He made a weird update in LinkedIn profile as he began his prison sentence following the collapse of this cryptocurrency exchange. In his LinkedIn, he made a new job announcement where he said that he's happy and proud to start a new job of being inmate in the prison. More than that, his announcement got a lot of reactions, and people started saying, "Congratulations with a new job. They will be lucky to have you. Good luck on your new workspace." So my question to you, is LinkedIn still a useful tool, useful social network, or has it become a pure cringy Vanity Fair?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I use LinkedIn a lot. So at first, I was actually thinking of saying that it is more of a sort of vanity. I mean, look, when we go onto LinkedIn, what do we see? At least sort of on the surface. It's like social media. It's a lot of nonsense posts. It's a lot of people just sort of promoting themselves for no reason. I read all the time all these, aggrandizing posts. Oh, look at this journey I went on. I'm sorry, honestly, I don't care. I don't think most people care. You're on LinkedIn for a reason. You're on LinkedIn to, again, have some sort of, whether it's professional success, business connections, things like that. So I think LinkedIn does have that issue where it's become too social media-ized, so to speak. That being said, and the more I thought about it, LinkedIn is actually still extremely valuable from my perspective. And I don't think these sort of individual stories actually damage or take away from the actual core value of the website, of the app, of the company. So a couple of things, for example, that I've used it for in the past and how I benefited. Obviously, you can use it to apply for jobs. Where else? I mean, you do have other websites, Indeed, a bunch of other ones where you can apply for jobs, fine. But I think the user interface around that is really good. It's really easy to apply for jobs. I think what's really great about it as well, obviously you got the built-in CV, right? So you can immediately and easily check on anybody's CV. You get all the up-to-date information as to where they worked, how long they worked, what position they had, what their skill set is, all of that, which is great. And then obviously the connections element. So I use the connections all the time. So, I mean, you know what I do for work, for example, on the sales side. So I need to be contacting different clients, see who the right person to contact is, figure out how to form these connections. And LinkedIn is phenomenal for that. There really is no replacement. There's nothing else like it. The alternative really is just doing research online or cold calling, which is, I mean, it's not even close to what LinkedIn can do. Again, I've gotten job offers from LinkedIn. So again, it sort of is, I think it's a requirement, in my opinion, for 21st century, for the 21st century workplace. You must have a LinkedIn. You must have it updated. You must use it. I think it's actually a necessity, a bit like Instagram or Facebook is somehow a social necessity. I think LinkedIn is a business and professional necessity. Some of the stats I read as well from LinkedIn is that 87% of recruiters use LinkedIn to vet or sort of scout candidates. So the entire recruiting industry is clearly seeing a lot of value in it.
Of course.
So I think that's important. LinkedIn also says that people who post 5 or more skills on their sort of individual skill question are 33 times more likely to get contacted by a recruiter, 17 times more likely to get profile views. So from that perspective, I think if people have LinkedIn, the most important thing is to use it properly, which is don't use it for scrolling. I mean, you want scrolling, you go to Instagram, you go somewhere else. Don't focus on the nonsense like this guy who apparently people are commenting and congratulating him for his prison sentence. Fine. But there actually is tremendous core benefit to LinkedIn as a platform. So I think this story, while at first sort of jumps out and reminds me of all the downsides of LinkedIn, to me it still doesn't take away whatsoever of how powerful and useful that app is in the modern workplace. But what's your take on that?
Okay. I think we agreeing too much
Wow,
today.
a lot of agreement.
Yes. When I first read this news again, I remember about all the downsides again. And also I remember that recently there was a guy who said, I just made a proposal. And that's what it taught me about B2B sales. And he was actually like standing on his knee with the ringer with the ring in his hand. And he said, like, I made a proposal, and that's what it taught me about B2B sales. Like, okay, when you have all this trash, but at the same time, I think LinkedIn is the most useful tool for business communications today. So first of all, it has 830 million users. And this is the only social network with that amount of users that has actually the purpose. So when you go there, you go on purpose. Like Facebook or Instagram, they're multi-purpose network. You can do whatever you want. You can post pictures. You can run the book club, or like you can run the community, or you can just, I don't know, show off about your family or something like that, or your travel, whatever. LinkedIn, yes, you can show off of your professional journey, you can show off your travel, but basically this is the social network that has the purpose in mind. And I think this is the greatest asset of LinkedIn. It was intent, like when you sign up on LinkedIn, you do it on purpose. You do it with some particular objective in your head, right? So personally, I managed to get like 4 good job offers from LinkedIn while I was outside UAE. I got them in the UAE. So basically, I found it super useful. Then I actually helped like 10 people to get the interviews and the offers when I coached them how to increase and improve their LinkedIn profiles. So again, I totally agree with you when you say that it's the tool, and we should not blame the tool. We should blame the users. If you don't like how the tool is being used, it's all about the users and the manuals. It's not about the tool itself. Again, there might be something where I said that LinkedIn might lose its purpose in the way it is developing. So what I'm saying is, initially, what you had there? You had the connections, you had the messaging, and you had the posts and the announcements and about your new job, your new journey, and promotions and so on. But then they added the creator mode where you can write the long reads. They added the short videos, same way as in Instagram Reels or TikTok. You can post the same videos over there, and the algorithm actually pushes this forward. Then they added the carousels, where you can add the PDF style slide, like presentation style pictures over there. And again, the algorithm pushes this as a new tools. So that, I think, might slightly kind of like deviate the purpose. And I think this what makes a lot of people, a lot of users thinking that it's a Vanity Fair and it's just like another place where you can show off. However, again, if you know the algorithm pushes it, it gives you the opportunity to use the purpose of the social network to promote yourself, to get yourself more contacts, you get yourself more job interviews, more business contacts, like the same way you use it. So I think actually it's a great tool, and we should not blame the tool, but we should blame the users if we don't like it, and we should use it purposefully, and we should use it smartly.
Totally agree. I think, again, LinkedIn's issue, don't go the Instagram route.
Right.
Don't be overly focused on the social media component. When you're on LinkedIn, you're not on LinkedIn to browse, to scroll, anything like that. Again, and I think the worst, and so I went onto LinkedIn right before when you gave me the question, just to sort of see what my initial impression is. Again, I go on it a lot, but to think about it a little bit more in depth. And again, social media heavy, a lot of ads that are completely irrelevant to why I'm on the app, and a lot of peacocking. So like everybody just sort of self-aggrandizing, self-promoting, all of this stuff. And it's just like, okay, it's not Instagram. So leave that for Instagram. I think that actually takes away from the app's experience. But as you said, if you use the app properly, the core value is still tremendous. It's still it's still a required part, I think, of 21st century business. LinkedIn is a critical component. It's a mandatory component. So yeah, we agree on that. We agreed a lot today.
Yeah, we agreed a lot. Yeah. Yeah.
Excellent. Anything else? Otherwise, I think we're
I
done
think
for
we should
today.
wrap up.
Okay. Excellent. Well, thank you, Vlad. Appreciate it, and appreciate everybody for watching. We'll see you guys next week.